Alright, let's see if we can walk our way through this. I know my instructions weren't exactly clear, but at this point in time, I'm assuming that you can cut and paste or copy and paste the spreadsheet from the Google Sheet. And we did kind of walk through this in class. So the first data that you have to do is introduce the sample size. And again, the formulas were in your lab packet. So here we're just going to do equals count. And we're going to highlight our array here. So we want these cells here to be counted. We hit return, and that gives me my count. The mean formula for that is you're going to type equals average, begin the parentheses, and you see on the screen here, it begins to tell you what happens inside that formula. So if you didn't know kind of what comes next. So the numbers that we want to average, of course, is the same array, which is this one here. Hit return. It gives me my mean. My standard deviation, I hit equals SDDEV. Anything more than that will give you a different kind of standard deviation that we're not going to use. And again, we're going to highlight the same array because we're running all the stats on the same data. That'll give me my standard deviation. And for the standard error of the mean, this is a little more complicated. This is the standard deviation divided by the square root of the count. So here, as soon as we hit equals, we don't have to type the formula again. We can just reference the cell. So as soon as I click here, because this is standard deviation, you'll see that the cell that there is populates. I'm going to then divide that by the square root of the count, which is here, which is this cell here, which is B23. I end my parentheses, and that will give me my standard error. Now all I have to do is take my standard error, times it by 2. So again, I just reference this cell, and if these numbers ever change, all those formulas will automatically change. So 2 times that there, and that will give me my standard error of the mean times 2. And as I kind of mentioned in class, we don't need this here, so I've crossed that out. So now that I've got the data for this column right here, the red gummy bears, all I need to do is highlight all of these. Wait, and you'll notice that over here we have a nice thick cross on my cursor. As soon as I hit this bottom corner, you'll see that the icon changes. As soon as I do that, I'm now in a copy mode. So I'm going to copy those formulas all the way across. And now I've populated all of this statistical data here in my chart. So down below, we're inherently going to run the same thing. So what I'm going to do down in table number 4 is we're running the same stats on the information above. So I'm going to repeat the same process. For the scatter plot later on, it's important here underneath the concentration to just have numbers and not letters like up above here that it's labeled. So this table really isn't good. Because when we go to do the scatter plot, Excel will not recognize this. So I'm going to go through and then essentially retype the exact same formulas, copy across. All right, now we're going to insert our bar graph, and there's a couple ways you can do this. In class, we talked about inserting just a blank graph and then selecting our data. So you can go up to insert at the top, drag over here. We have this, and as there was nothing highlighted in the data, we get a blank graph. And then when on the highlighted graph, we then right-click. You're going to select your data, and we're going to drag across here to get my colors, and then I want that mean, so I'm going to hold the Control button and highlight these. So now both sets are then highlighted, and you'll see that the graph populated over here. We have those colors underneath, and we have series number 1. So that will give me my graph. We can also then, if we kind of delete this, if we actually highlight the data that we want and we kind of understand how Excel is going to work, we can then actually highlight the mean, both together, do the same process, insert, bar graph. You'll notice we get the exact same thing. So again, multiple ways to do one thing. Here we need to add our axes titles, so you can put your proper axes titles here. You have your chart title, which you can go through and add on. Once we're in here, we talked yesterday about once you click on this bar, you'll highlight all the bars, but if I click again, it's just this bar. If I right click, here's my fill option. That is the red gummy bear, so we can choose a red and we can make our way down. This was a green. So we want to fill with some kind of green color. Next we had yellow. So we'll fill that with a yellow, and if you don't like this yellow because it's super, super bright, if you go to choose more colors, you can actually then pick a duller yellow if you would like. Now we have yellow, same thing with pink. Want to fill that guy. Again, there's no pink on the charts. choose down there in the middle somewhere. We get not pink apparently. Oh, I clicked the outline, not the highlight, so we'll go with pink. Nope, don't want an outline, sorry. And then here we have orange, our last one, and then we'll fill that with some kind of orange. So now I have all my bars representing all of my means, and then again you add in what you need to here. And the next hard thing that we had to do was add those error bars. So on that add chart element we have error bar. We want to click the arrow, choose more options. That'll open up my menu over here on the side. These are the formatting of the error bars. You can see this little tiny caret under the paint bucket. That's the formatting of how they're done. So you can change their sides, their colors, and so on. The thickness of those over here. But what we really want are the options over here with the little bar graphs will tell me which ones I need. Now this is kind of screwy. So this is where we pick our custom error bars. And then we're going to specify our values. So my positive error value is going to be, we want that error value to be 2 times the standard error of the mean. So I'm going to highlight all of these across. My negative value, again, you need to make sure you delete what's here. It'll tell you it's all screwy, are the exact same numbers because we want to go above the top of the bar and below the top of the bar the same amount. So they're the exact same numbers. Once I do that, as I went across, it's going to apply those sequentially across, and this becomes then, you'll see all the different error bars on your graph right here. And so if we kind of expand this, if you hold the shift button, it locks your aspect ratio. So you can see the difference in those standard errors of the mean throughout these. If you need to, and you're going to print in black and white, we talked about when you do your fill, you can actually either change different shades of gray across the board, or if you go to textures, and come down to more textures, you'll find this opens up over here, and we can do a pattern fill. So this is where you can do your dots. And again, these will all come up if you have black and white or grays. These will all come up in grayscale. So you can then change your pattern on your different bars. So it's easy to tell what those are going to look like. And pattern fill, so because I had a choice of different colors, we could go angular, but again, if this would be in gray, this would be in gray, and across the board you can tell the difference in yours bars, and also you have a label on the bottom. But that is the bar graph with your standard error of the mean times 2 for your first component. Your next graph, when it comes to the first part, was your scatter plot. So now we're down here at table number 4. We're going to follow the same basic processes, so we can highlight. These are then our concentrations of sucrose. Here are the means that go with those. So again, I'm holding control, which will allow me to highlight here and highlight here without unhighlighting. Now I can insert, and this time we're going to down at the bottom, the little dots here. That's going to be your scatter plot. So we just want a basic one. We don't want to connect the line. Throughout the year, if we do a line graph for like an enzymatic reaction and so on, you actually want to do a scatter plot with kind of curved lines, smooth lines, because that's the way it should be done. But this just asks you to do a scatter plot with your data. So you'll notice this nice linear relationship here, which we'll throw in a trend line at the end. So we follow the same basic processes. We're going to add axes titles. You guys can go through and title that. Here again, we're going to go to error bars, and we're going to go to more options just as we did before. And I honestly have no clue what the settings are on this, which is why you get these side error bars. But we'll work on fixing these, and then we're just going to delete these. So again, we click on the bars that are over here to make sure we get our data. We're going to then do custom error bars. We're going to specify across our positive value. Our negative value is here. So now that gives me my error bars. These, once you click on them, you see now I've picked those side error bars. And if I just delete, magic. No idea why it did that, and we've solved the problem, so I don't care. Another thing is you'll notice that we've kind of lost that trend, that nice kind of slope on the line, but you'll notice on the graph, there's all kinds of empty space at the bottom, which we can remove, and that's easily done. All you have to do is then click the numbers on your axes, And if you come over here again, we want to fix what those are. You'll see my axes options. And you see a minimum and a maximum. So it goes up to 6. It starts at 0. We can actually start this thing at 3. So if I change my minimum to 3, hit return, I now spread these out. Right? I could even, if I wanted to, bring that up to like 3.2, but you kind of get that idea. So now I have these lines here. If you wanted to, let's say, have the graph end at 1, then you would do the same basic process. You would click on your x-axis numbers. You come over here and say that I want my axes options, the maximum not to be 1.2, but 1. And now I've spread that graph out. All right. So again, that same basic process in our changing the axes information. So now we have this, and I believe somewhere in the lab that it asked you to add a trend line. So you can do that, and this is linear, and there it is already, done. If you go to more options, again, it'll give you everything that's over here. So if you wanted to, you could even then display that equation on the graph of that trend line. So if ever you have to figure out maybe where a value crosses, maybe you want to see where it crosses, let's say like 0.4. So you can actually go through and use your y equals mx plus b, plug in 0.4, and you can calculate that specific value on the line. So that can be very helpful. That's the quick way to add that linear trend line. And you're then given, if you want to give that R value to see how straight that is, you can see that nice number that's close to 1, showing that's a pretty darn straight line going through all those data points. But that's how you do the scatter plot, add those error bars in, and then add that trend line for this part of the lab.